media saying that the area, that block that was completely overrun, looks completely different. And this mirrors exactly what the city did when Joe Biden came to assess the border crisis in El Paso back in January. So, again, a lot of those migrants have since been processed. And going back to that entire processing operation that CBP did the other day, they basically told the migrants, hey, go turn yourself in. We'll give you a notice to appear. And I was speaking to some migrants who have dates for their notice to appear as far out as April 2027. And let's keep in mind that when they are given these processing papers, this allows them to legally stay in the United States until that court date. So, some of these migrants basically coming into the United States, the processing is taking, I mean, the other day, it was a very quick process. They basically were in and out. I actually just posted the interviews. If people want to go on my Twitter and, listen to the migrants themselves talking about how simple this is, and they were essentially let go into the United States. So this is a giant catch and release operation. That's what I'm seeing on the ground here in El Paso. It's an absolute mess over here. You have thousands crossing over. Just yesterday on the Juarez side, we had about 2,000 people who had crossed over. I believe the numbers in the El Paso sector right now, we have around 3,600 illegal immigrants currently in custody. A lot of the migrant shelters already at 170% capacity. So completely overwhelmed over here in the city of El Paso.
Say goodbye to your country, America. That's the end. And that is an accurate picture of what's happening on the ground. That's been an accurate picture of what's happening on the ground for several years, and that won't change simply because we have United States Congress that does not want to do their job, and then when we do get a president that does want to put America first, we have Democrats and left wing groups and NGOs and all these people that want open borders interfering. And so this is the situation, and we're going to be in a world of trouble for the next 2 years. It's going to be hell. It's going to be a living hell. So get ready. Get your affairs in order.
And I want to go ahead and button on this as well, because I know that, you know what, if we are honest, it is majority the Democrat Party who is exacerbating this crisis. But let's be honest here. Greg Abbott should have had the barbed wire up around the border for the past couple of years. Okay, this border crisis is nothing new. To be quite honest with you, none of the footage coming out of Brownsville, Texas right now, or McAllen area is shocking to me. That happens all the time, but because we have media presence, that's the only reason why this issue is getting cleaned up. So yes, this process is majority. A lot of these progressives, these Democrats who have created this issue, but we do need Republican governors like Greg Abbott to start fixing this problem. He's been very soft on this issue. And again, we're seeing, his Texas Tactical Border Force that was deployed. He brought in an extra 500 National Guardsmen. They just started putting up the barbed wire ahead of the expiration of Title 42. But we have had record high illegal immigration since Joe Biden has gotten into office. For the fiscal year of 2022, we had over 2 million illegal immigrants cross into the U.S. We have millions at this point, over 5 million that have crossed over, maybe even closer to 10 since Joe Biden has gotten into office. So again, it is
So,
up
so
to
Savannah, can I
Republican
ask you a
governors.
question?
Yes,
So,
please.
so I understand your point about illegal immigration. What's
Mhm.
your position on increasing or the need to increase legal migration?
I think that we need to get this issue under control first before we even look at, again, increasing legal immigration. And I do want to highlight as well, when I am speaking to these migrants, and I always make sure to leave the clips in when they say, hey, I would have loved to have gone through this process legally, but because I couldn't even access the CBP1 app, I went ahead and just crossed over. So I definitely do think that we have an issue with our processing. I think we have an issue with the entire system right now, but that all stems from the fact that our border is wide open. So you do have people who have spent time and money and effort to come into this country legally, and then they're basically, you have all these people coming in illegally every single day across the border, and it's a huge slap in the face to these immigrants who are trying to do it the right way. So we need to fix the issues of our open border first before we even talk about the expansion of legal immigration.
But the problem you have is I get what you're saying. Obviously, I understand the logic behind why illegal immigration would be a problem if it's not curtailed. The problem is that the United States and the Western world essentially does need migration, and what they need is an increase in it. So if you're gonna stop illegal immigration, you're gonna need to increase legal migration.
Well, can I ask you on that point too? Because again, I didn't really join this space to debate. I'm here to really just show you guys and tell you guys what I'm seeing here on the ground. But to your point of the United States needing migration, can you expand on that a little bit more, just so I can understand,
Sure,
where your mindset is on that?
Kosh. So there's not a huge amount of studies in this area, which obviously is a concern, but there
Mm-hmm.
is a couple. So the London School of Economics did a study, and they said that essentially in the Western world you need a significant increase in migration to keep the infrastructure of the country flowing, and such is the level of legal migration not being at the level we need, that illegal immigration, even some aspects of that are covering it. So that's what the study shows.
Okay, I mean that's something that again I will gladly look into as well. And when it does come to legal immigration, if you even do look at, let's say, Title 8, for example, a lot of the migrants who are turned away for asylum, or just any of these other policies, it's always interesting to me how it's like consistently Venezuelans, Cubans, like a lot of the migrants that are fleeing these socialist countries that are always on that list to be immediately turned away. It's harder for them to seek asylum. So that's something I'll definitely look into. Like I said, I'm kind of here reporting what I'm seeing right now, and it's a mess because it's an open borders issue. We have no process right now.
And I totally disagree that we need more legal migration. We don't. And Savannah, I don't disagree with you that rhinos are a big problem. The John McCain's and the Mitt Romneys and the Liz Cheneys of the world, they love open borders. So that's why I said, as long as we don't have an America First president, we will be dealing with the situation. You highlighted the fact that immigration has gone to hell since Joe Biden took office. We have tribal nations that intersect the lands between the states, as well as as well as the United States border. So you have to have a willing participant with the tribal nations along with the state, but you have to have a functioning federal government. And if you don't have a president of the United States, as I said in Article 2, as the executive who has the power over alien entry, you're going to have this problem. And yeah, the Texas governor could have put up all the barbed wire he wanted in the world. But at the end of the day, if you have a dysfunctional federal government led by a dysfunctional president of the United States, this is the end result.
Christian,
And I will.
can I ask you
Can I
Yeah.
something,
speak?
Christian?
Oh, go ahead,
Can I
Kira.
ask you something?
Well,
Well,
Who
let's hear. Sorry, go
okay.
ahead,
who
Joe.
So a couple
No,
yeah,
of
let's hear
who
Kira
things.
first.
asked
A couple
who
couple of things.
Wait,
First of all,
Joe, let Tito go
Joa,
first.
yeah, a
yeah,
couple of things. First of all, legal immigration eh, has been such a valuable thing for our country. So to sort of say, let's close the borders when we really are, as Sam said, we are not overwhelmed in general. My proposal has always been that we should increase the diversity visa. Right now it's 50,000, I believe. We also have what H-1B is about 85,000, something like that, which is visa program. I think we could do a lot more, and we do have the resources. Savannah, and I agree with Suleiman. I really think that we are being a little. I understand people's concerns about the current border issue, but we really have to look long term. The United States has probably a declining birth rate, and we will need people. And immigrants have been a strength. Please remember that. Okay, stop this. Every immigrant is bad. Whatever. Immigrants are not
I never
allowed.
said that every immigrant
No,
is
no, no,
bad. So
not you. I'm just okay. Number
She's
two,
talking
I
about
do.
me.
Well, probably Christian. Have you? Are you going to run again? Anyway, okay. So number two, I do think that Venezuelans and Cubans, for example, are part of the new policy, which actually gives them greater ability to enter the United States. So I'm not sure Cubans have been disfavored in general in this process, if you know what I mean. I'm wondering actually why you suggested that. In general, they've had a lot of they were given a lot of leeway vis-a-vis Florida, et cetera, that the policies
Kira, and
changed.
and
But
can I just ask you, because I'm not familiar with you, so do you work with migrants? Have you gone into the communities that have been affected by the migrants and,
No,
where a
no,
lot of these illegal
I only
immigrants are
work with
going?
people who have come up to New York, okay? And I have worked with them, but that's
But
different than
have you
what you're
talked to the
suggesting.
people in New York who are having to pay for the illegal immigrants that are making their way to your city? Because last time I checked, New York taxpayers were paying around $10 billion for the illegal immigrants. Meanwhile, you guys have a huge
You're
homeless
asking
crisis
whether
up there.
that
You
can
guys have a
people who,
crisis with
I'm sorry,
crime.
I couldn't
The
hear you.
illegal immigration or some of the crime rates under control is, focusing in on
Not enough rage.
like Donald Trump trying to indict him. So I just, again, I respect what you're saying, but at the same time, if you have not gone and spoken to the Americans who are being directly impacted by illegal immigration, then your words really have no merit to me.
Savannah, I live, wait, I want to respond. I live in New York, okay? I don't
That's the
think you
point
do. You're
here.
right.
You live in New York. You live in New
No, no,
York.
no. What
Yeah,
I'm
well, let's
trying
hear
to,
your answer.
Nick, what I'm trying to say is when I look at the crime rate in New York, it is well below most major cities, as you probably know or would know if you actually review the statistics. New York is one of the safest large cities. Of course, it's not safe. No large city has no crime, etc. But we actually don't have the major crime that you seem to be suggesting. Many New Yorkers are concerned about the influx of migrants because we do not have the facilities set up. It is costing money, but I also think you underestimate the fact I work with some NGOs and some charitable groups, and there are many people who want to help. Thank you.
Okay, but
I
Nick,
Can
understand
I
that.
please
I,
say
go ahead.
something
I
really
also,
important?
Well, let Nick
Okay,
go because
we're all
sorry,
talking
I'm
at
just
the
gonna
same
let.
time. Hold on.
Yeah,
Suleiman,
let Nick
I
go.
just want to say one thing. As somebody who lives in Texas, who lives by the border, and I don't want to go specifically where, I understand the people who have those concerns and that's brought up. Like the place where I live is one of those places impacted by this migration. But the issue that I want to highlight, just from somebody who has lived here for a decade, is that a lot of times the focus of these communities only happens when there's these migration surge, right? And I think Savannah, you brought it up, right? That people go in
mhm,
and they get the cameras and they record it. But this isn't our first rodeo. I've been here for a decade. This isn't my first rodeo. We've dealt with
absolutely.
this. It's not. And so but I think what people forget is that in border communities, right? First of all, the one of the most important aspects of border communities is our relationship with our sister cities in Mexico. These are sister cities. You cannot have a border city without our counterpart in Mexico. The family ties, the business ties, the economic ties, the ability to cross borders back and forth. I cross the border to fly out from Mexico if I want to go on family. And so we are a lot more than just this migrant crisis. We've dealt with this. It's not a panic. The community I live in specifically, yes, we understand there's issues in certain part of our city, but at the same time, it's bigger than that. And I just don't want the narrative to be border communities, quote, are under siege, we're invaded. Like the 99% of the times we're here and dealing with this, even today, we don't talk about the migration surge. We just talk about other things like,
Okay, well, let me
and
let me
trust me, in
jump in with
Texas, it's
some
the Dallas
news here
Cowboys.
because we were talking about New York City. So it seems like the that New York City is trying to appeal a temporary restraining order that blocks it from sending migrants to another county. Clearly, New York, even New York City, one of the big sanctuary cities in the United States, is now expressing concern about the fact that they don't have the resources, they don't have the space to take care of these migrants. Why are they expecting all of these other counties and cities within the United States to be able to take care of it if the largest city in the country can't do it themselves? That's
So
what I want to
I'll
know.
tell you, Nick. I'll tell you because I'll tell you right now why. Right? Because again, here's the fundamental difference is that although the surge is over capacity for the border community, obviously because of the volume.
Need more
As I
rage.
said in the past, this isn't our first rodeo. We've dealt with this. There's a significant more infrastructure in the border areas
I
to
can't
deal
carry
with
it.
this. And actually, one of the ironies
Inventory is full.
is that when you actually have migration surge, you know what you also have come up a lot that they actually post on local news? Jobs to deal with the migration. There is a lot of contracts that come out, DHA's contracts, Human and Health Services contracts, to deal with it because there's infrastructure. Here's a
So
perfect
you're
example: Fort
arguing that the
Bliss.
government, it's good handing out more
No,
money
no, no,
and
no, no.
jobs.
Let me finish, Nick. The difference is no, but the difference is that when you grab migrants and then send them to, like, let's say New York, that doesn't have a history of migration, and you do it without coordinating from states to states just to send a message, a political message, as these migrants are like human pawns for political tools.
It's not a political message at all. And to be quite honest, I don't agree with your take on border cities either, because I see the border crossing or the border crisis, and I live all the way up in Austin. And again, when I come to these border cities, I specifically come and talk to residents. And a lot of people who own ranches, by the way, they don't feel safe. They don't even feel like they can protect their own property from cartel members, from human smugglers, from drug traffickers that are crossing and using their land every single day. By the way, let's not forget that what in Chicago just the other week, a migrant has already been arrested 3 times. He's been here in the U.S. for 3 weeks. I have had people in El Paso since I've been here over just the past 3 days reaching out to me and saying, "Hey, thank you for talking about what's happening in our city because we don't feel safe. The streets of downtown El Paso did not used to look like this." And again, I'm in front of Sacred Heart Church in El Paso. People are peeing and pooping in the streets down there. It is a biohazard. So for you to say like, "Oh, well, yeah, border cities are fine, like we don't even notice the issue," I'm going to push back on that because again, I was speaking to local media in El Paso who were saying this looks like
You
San
haven't been to
Francisco.
San
This is a
Francisco
huge hammer.
lately.
I
So
actually,
let me,
I
Savannah. Let me
actually
let me
have.
tell you
Some of the.
exactly.
Go
Savannah,
ahead.
let me tell you exactly, and I'll make that just for public. I live in El Paso.
Okay.
I lived here for 10 years.
Need more
This is I've lived here for 10
So
years. I live in El
because
Paso,
the border
Texas.
crisis isn't affecting you, it's not affecting anybody in El Paso.
No, no, I'm not saying it's not affecting everybody else. I'm saying that this is obviously overcapacity. Trust me, I track local news extensively. I live here. I'm not saying it's not. But the problem I have, the issue that I have, is that the only time border communities get focused is when stuff like this happens. There's this huge push. There's this idea that we are,
I can't
like,
carry
I
you.
don't like the term for border communities to be perceived as invasion, flooded, everything. Like, I
Well,
understand there's problems.
I
Trust me, I
can't.
Wait, wait,
live
wait,
it.
wait.
I've
Can I
been
can
to a
I
downtown El
comment on
Paso.
that?
I'd love to ask the
Because
question really quickly to you. To all sour, all source
All
mute.
source.
Sorry, I
It's
just
fine. All
all
source.
source.
I get that all
Okay.
the time.
He's sour.
Just quick question for you because I think the difference is, do you own land here in El Paso? Do you own land near the border? Because I think your perspective versus the perspective of a rancher or somebody who owns land near the border, those people do think it's an invasion because every single day the cartels are using their land to
Savannah,
smuggle you
how
and
long
to
have they
smuggle
been
drugs.
telling you? How long have they been telling you this is a problem, Savannah? How long?
What do you mean by they?
I mean, the people that you're saying are telling you, or that you're witnessing, are having problems. The landowners. How long have they been telling you about these problems?
This has been an issue for years. So for all sources,
So
going back to all sources'
during
point,
Title 42, this has been a problem.
no, this has always been a problem. So I guess going
Not
back to
enough
what all
rain.
source was saying, I do agree with that. That when it comes to like the big pushes of groups of migrants crossing the border, that's when the media pays attention to it. But this is something that's continuously ongoing all the time that we need to be paying attention to.
So Savannah, I'll tell you. So I focus on cartels, and I would love to have a cartel debate. Right? I love it. That's what I track. That's what I do. I'm immersed in it. I'm all into it. That's my whole purpose of Twitter. So when you're talking about El Paso specifically, right? When you're saying land, right? And we're talking about El Paso, the question that I have for you though is, right? Because it's a little bit. I'm a little bit. So if you go through 375 Border Highway, right? If from El Paso, you can
Right.
follow 375 Border Highway. That entire section of the border is walled off, right? It's completely walled off. You keep on going down. You get into 370. If you go on I-10, which probably most people are used to, and you go west, that's when you see the build the wall, because there was a part of that area that there was never construction. They did the build the wall. But there's large sections from El Paso, from West El Paso to East El Paso, that are fairly well developed. Like, this is a city. It's not like the city of El Paso. Now, if you go outside of the city, you're talking about the county. You're talking about Socorro. You're going deeper and deeper outside of kind of like El Paso County or border counties. There I can understand that there's a concern about these issues of border crossings along the ranch, like Cattleman Steakhouse, all the way on the east side of El Paso. I can understand that. I'm not disagreeing with that. The
Mm-hmm.
problem that I have when we're talking about the border community, specifically about El Paso, there's a fundamental difference of saying there's a concern and then, hey, this is a surge and that's taking away resources. And then how it's portrayed as like everybody in El Paso is locking our house, we got our guns ready, this is an invasion, we need to get ready, when people in El Paso will tell you, more importantly to them, and this is a fact, a lot of the community and livelihood depends on our ability to grow across the border with Juarez. Ciudad Juarez, family members, there's a lot of Americans that live in Ciudad Juarez that cross the border to work in El Paso and vice
Yes,
versa.
legally cross,
Yes, of
correct?
course, absolutely.
Legally.
What
Right. So that's
confuses me about this debate with Savannah right now um is that Trump built this magnificent wall and introduced Title 42. Biden
No,
allowed Title
no, no, no,
42
no,
to
no,
continue.
Sam.
No, no, please don't
Trump
interrupt me,
was
Nick.
not able to
Please don't
build the
interrupt me,
wall.
Nick.
He was
Biden,
not.
but
No,
please don't interrupt me,
I'm
Nick.
going to
Come on,
correct
double
you.
standards, mate. Like,
There are double
Trump
standards,
built
I
this
guess. But
magnificent wall,
It is
introduced
double
Title
standards.
Trump
42.
wasn't able to build the wall. I'm not
Wait,
going to sit
hang
here and
on,
let you
Nick.
say something
Trump was in
corrected to
power
me.
for how many years was Trump in power for? Why wasn't he able to build? So you're saying that the wall was a failure now and Title 42 is a failure? So why are we fighting to keep Title 42 in place if that was a
Man, I have
failure?
been to the wall this weekend.
So
There's
it was okay.
sections of it where you can just walk around it
Of
because
course
it
there is
wasn't
because
able to be
because it
built.
was
You
yeah
You
still
can
have
because
also
it was
the
a
just climb. You
cones
fence.
and
can also
everything.
just climb over it if you want to.
Yes, it was a fence. It wasn't a
You can climb over
magnificent
it.
hundred
Well,
Yeah,
foot
Nick,
well,
hang
you
wall
on.
can climb
paid
over
for by
anything, I
Mexico.
guess.
I
Yeah,
would love to hear. I would love to hear the comment, Nick. So let me.
the
I'd
point
love
I'm
to hear
making
it.
is that Title 42 has been in existence for all of these years. And Savannah, from her reports, is saying that this problem is at least as bad as it has always been. The wall, is more of a wall than it was if we call it a wall, 4 or 5 years ago. So are we saying that neither Title 42 nor the wall have helped any of these issues? And this is a far bigger picture. This isn't about Biden. This isn't about Trump. This is about reforming immigration law and protect and border protection. So why are we
that's false.
politicizing it?
No,
So let me just go to
That's
Nick.
false,
One
and
second.
I'll tell you why.
One second. Too many people talking. Nick, go ahead, bro, because I know you're on the wall and you want to say something. Go ahead, bro. Nick.
Well, I mean, I pretty much said what I wanted to say there. I mean, it's, you see these little portions of the wall that were built, right? You still see the dirt roads and the construction cones that were around it. Of course, you don't see any construction vehicles anymore because of the fact that, the first thing that Biden did when he came into office